The streets of Los Angeles were full of life. Cars honked, bright signs flickered, and people walked past each other, busy with their own thoughts. Among them was Keanu Reeves. He wore his usual comfy clothes, with his hands in the pockets of his black jacket. He walked toward a small bookstore hidden between two tall buildings. Even though Keanu was a big movie star, he loved simple things, quiet places, deep talks, and time alone. That's why he loved this little bookstore. It was not like the big modern stores with screens and robots. It was small, cozy, and smelled like old books and fresh coffee. But today, something special was about to happen. Something that would change his life forever. As Keanu stepped inside, the warm lights wrapped around him like a hug. He smiled at the familiar sight, the kind old bookstore owner sitting behind the counter drinking tea. Soft jazz music played in the background. The sound of pages turning filled the air. It felt peaceful, like stepping into a different world, far away from the noise of the city. Keanu walked to the philosophy section looking at the books. He reached for an old copy of The Alchemist when he heard a soft voice behind him. "Excuse me? Are you Keanu Reeves?" He turned around expecting to see a fan. But instead he saw a girl about 14 or 15 years old. She wore a thick scarf even though it wasn't that cold. Her skin was pale and she looked weak. But her eyes were bright and her smile was kind. Keanu smiled warmly. "Yeah, that's me. What's your name?" The girl's eyes sparkled. "Sophie." Keanu noticed something special about her. It wasn't just excitement, it was something deeper, something personal. She took a deep breath before speaking again as if gathering courage. I just wanted to say thank you," she whispered. "For being you." Keanu blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" Sophie smiled. "Your movies, your interviews, the way you live your life. You've helped me more than you'll ever know." Keanu could tell she meant every word. He had met many fans before, but this was different. "I'm really honored to hear that, Sophie," he said gently. "What's your favorite movie?" Her eyes lit up. "The Lake House. The way your character writes letters to someone in a different time. It's like hope exists beyond reality." Keanu chuckled. "That's one of my favorites too." But then for just a second, Sophie's smile faded. Keanu saw something behind her eyes, pain, exhaustion. And then she told him the truth. "I have a condition," she said softly. "The doctors say I don't have much time left." Keanu felt like he had been punched in the heart. He swallowed hard, his chest tight. Sophie saw the sadness in his eyes and quickly tried to cheer him up. "But I'm okay," she said with a bright smile. "I've had the best time with my family, and now I got to meet you. So honestly, I think I've already won." Keanu took a deep breath. He had been through a lot of loss in his life. He knew the pain of losing someone you love. And in that moment, he made a silent promise. He wouldn't let Sophie's last days be ordinary. Keanu glanced at his watch. He had planned a quiet evening, maybe dinner and a book before going home. But now that didn't matter. He looked at Sophie and smiled. "Hey, do you have anywhere to be right now?" Sophie looked confused. No." Keanu grinned. "How about we go on an adventure?" Her eyes widened. "Wait, are you serious?" He nodded. "Absolutely. Let's make today unforgettable." Sophie let out a small laugh, almost like she couldn't believe what was happening. "Okay," she whispered. And just like that, Keanu Reeves took a girl on a day she would never forget. As they walked through the city, Sophie kept glancing at Keanu, still not believing it was real. She clutched her coat, feeling nervous but excited. "So," she finally said with a small smile. "When you said adventure, what exactly does that mean?" Keanu grinned, hands still in his pockets. "It means we're doing whatever you want today." Sophie laughed, shaking her head. "You're Keanu Reeves. Don't you have a million important things to do?" Keanu shrugged. "Not more important than this." That one sentence meant the world to her. People always told her to rest, to be careful. They treated her like a countdown. But today, Keanu treated her like a person. That meant everything. First stop, the ride of a lifetime. Sophie thought for a moment. "Okay, if I get to choose, then my first request is simple." Keanu raised an eyebrow. "Let's hear it." "I want to ride a motorcycle." Keanu's grin widened. "Now we're talking." 20 minutes later, they arrived at a garage filled with Keanu's favorite bikes. Sophie's mouth fell open. They looked like something out of a movie. "Pick one," Keanu said. She pointed to a black and silver bike. "That one looks like it could outrun time itself." Keanu chuckled. "Great choice." He handed her a helmet and helped her onto the seat behind him. "Hold on tight," he said. Then they took off. The wind rushed past Sophie's face. The city blurred around her. She laughed, not a little giggle but a deep, full laugh. She wasn't thinking about hospital rooms or medicine. She was just living. Second stop, the Star treatment. After the ride, they pulled up to a small diner, one of Keanu's favorite spots. It was cozy and had the best burgers in town. As they walked in, the staff immediately recognized Keanu. "Mr. Reeves," the owner said with a big smile. "Good to see you again." Keanu gestured towards Sophie. "This is my friend Sophie. She's my VIP guest today." The owner beamed. "VIP, huh? That means she gets whatever she wants in the house." Sophie's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Absolutely. For a VIP like you, only the best." Sophie giggled as she looked at the menu. "Okay then. I want the biggest, juiciest burger you have. And fries. Lots of fries." Keanu smirked. "Good call." As they ate, they talked about everything. Movies, music, books, places Sophie wanted to see. Keanu listened to every word. And for Sophie that meant everything. A moment of truth. As the day went on, Sophie started to feel something new. Not sadness. Not fear. But something close to peace. And as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, Keanu knew one thing for sure. This was a day neither of them would ever forget. She had been getting ready for the end. The doctors told her she didn't have much time left. People whispered around her, feeling sorry for her. But Keanu didn't look at her with pity. He looked at her like she was just a regular person, someone with dreams and stories to tell. That evening, they sat by the beach, watching the sunset. Sophie had a question in her heart all day, and finally she asked, "Keanu, why are you doing this?" Keanu looked at her, then at the ocean. The waves made soft sounds as they hit the shore. After a moment, he answered, "Because I know what it feels like to lose someone. I know how it feels when time is taken away from you." Sophie watched him closely. She had read about Keanu's past, how he lost his best friend, his child, and the woman he loved. She always thought of him as someone who carried a lot of pain. But now, sitting next to him, she understood. He didn't let pain control him. Instead, he chose to be kind. At that moment, she realized Keanu wasn't trying to save her. He was making sure that, in the time she had left, she knew she mattered, that she was important, and that she was loved. As the stars began to shine in the sky, Keanu turned to Sophie. "Is there anything else you want to do?" he asked. Sophie hesitated, biting her lip. She looked down at her hands. Then, in a small voice, she said, "There is one thing." Keanu leaned in to listen. Sophie took a deep breath. "I want to know what it feels like to be hugged by someone who really cares about me." Keanu's heart tightened. She said it so softly, like it was a secret she had been afraid to share. Without a word, he opened his arms. Sophie moved into them, holding on tightly as if trying to make time stop. Keanu held her gently but firmly, letting her know she was not alone, that she was loved. Sophie closed her eyes and a single tear rolled down her cheek. "Thank you," she whispered. "For today. For everything." Keanu couldn't speak. His throat felt tight with emotion. So instead, he just held her closer. The stars sparkled above and the waves whispered softly. It was one of those nights that felt magical, like time wasn't real. But for Keanu and Sophie, time was real. And it was running out. Sophie had lived a lifetime in just one day. She had ridden on the back of Keanu's motorcycle through the city. She had eaten a meal that made her feel special. And she had sat under the stars with someone who truly cared. But as the night went on, Keanu could feel it. The truth. The weight of it pressing down. Sophie was getting tired. Not the kind of tiredness that sleep could fix. It was something deeper. A kind of tiredness that whispered that the end was near. And Keanu wasn't ready. Sophie leaned her head against Keanu's shoulder. She was small and fragile, like a tiny bird resting before its last flight. She let out a soft laugh, weaker than before. "You know," she said, "I used to be scared." Keanu turned his head slightly. "Scared of what?" "Of leaving," Sophie admitted. "I used to lie awake at night, thinking about everything I would miss. Graduations. Falling in love. Growing old. All the things I never got the chance to do." Keanu didn't know what to say. What could he say? There were no perfect words to fix this. But Sophie wasn't done. "Today I realized something," she continued. "It's not about how much time we have. It's about what we do with the time we get." She lifted her head and looked into his eyes. "And today," she whispered, "today was enough." Keanu felt his throat tighten again. Because she meant it. She had lost everything and yet she was grateful. He had met so many people, famous people, smart people, but this young girl was the wisest person he had ever known. The ocean breeze played with Sophie's hair as she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small folded letter. She held it out to Keanu. "What's this?" he asked. Sophie smiled. "A letter for someone special." Keanu took it, running his fingers over the soft paper. "For who?" Sophie hesitated. Then she said something that broke his heart. "For you." Keanu's breath caught. "Sophie, don't read it yet," she said softly. "Not tonight. But one day when you're ready." Keanu held the letter carefully like it was the most precious thing in the world. Sophie smiled, but this time it was different. It was a goodbye. And Keanu wasn't ready. The next morning, Keanu drove Sophie home. Her hospital bed was still there, surrounded by books she hadn't finished, pictures of places she had dreamed of visiting, and little reminders of the life she never got to live. Her parents stood at the door, their faces filled with love and sadness. Keanu turned to Sophie. "Do you need anything?" Sophie smiled, her eyes tired but peaceful. "I already have everything I ever wanted." Keanu swallowed hard, trying not to cry. "Are you sure?" Sophie hesitated, then reached for his hand. "Just one last hug." Keanu pulled her into his arms, holding her close. Silent tears ran down his face. Sophie closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you for today. Thank you for seeing me." Keanu pressed his chin against her head. "You were never invisible, Sophie," he murmured. "You were always meant to shine." Then the moment ended. Sophie stepped back toward her parents, giving Keanu one last smile before walking through the door. He watched her go, knowing in his heart that he would never see her again. And he was right. A few days later the call came. Sophie had passed away peacefully, surrounded by family. Keanu sat alone in his apartment, the world moving on as if nothing had changed. But for him, everything had. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the letter she had given him. His fingers trembled as he opened it. "Dear Keanu, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. But don't be sad. You gave me something that no doctor, no medicine, and no extra time could ever give me. You made me feel truly alive. Life isn't about counting the days. It's about making the days count. And you made mine count. I don't know if there's an afterlife. But if there is, I hope it looks like the sunset we watched together. I hope it feels like the wind on your motorcycle, the laughter we shared, and the warmth of that last hug. And I hope you remember me not with sadness, but with a smile. Because today was enough. Thank you for making me feel like I mattered. With love, Sophie." Keanu pressed the letter to his chest, his eyes shutting as tears fell. Sophie was gone. But her words stayed with him. Years later, Keanu honored Sophie's memory in a way the world never expected. He created the Sophie Foundation, helping sick children live their final days with love and joy. And every year on the day they met, Keanu would take out her letter, read it, and whisper, "Today is enough." Sophie stayed safe inside Keanu's jacket pocket, close to his heart. He had read her letter so many times that he knew every word by heart. Even though Sophie was gone, Keanu still felt her everywhere, in the warm colors of a sunset, in the quiet of a bookstore, and in the laughter of people around him. But the truth was, he wasn't ready to say goodbye yet. He held on to every memory of her, every moment they had shared, as if letting go would mean losing her forever. Sophie had made a big difference in Keanu's life. He had met many people, walked on red carpets, and traveled the world, but nothing had ever touched him the way Sophie's story did. It wasn't just about her sickness. It was about how she lived. She smiled when she could have cried, she loved life even when it was unfair, and she found joy even when things were hard. That was true bravery. Keanu had always known that life was precious, but Sophie made him realize just how powerful kindness and love could be. Keanu had always believed that life was short and every moment was special. But now, he felt a responsibility to make sure Sophie's story didn't end with her. If she could change his life in just one day, what else could her story do? He couldn't just move on and forget her. He needed to make sure the world knew about her strength, her kindness, and the way she made people feel. Keanu had an idea. He wanted to create something in Sophie's honor, not just with her name but with her spirit. He started a foundation not just to help sick kids with money, but to give them something even better, happiness. A reason to smile, a reason to feel alive even when the world seemed unfair. Too many kids spent their last days in hospital rooms, surrounded by machines and doctors. Keanu had seen it himself. But what if, instead of just waiting for the end, these kids got to have adventures? What if they could have amazing days full of fun just like Sophie did? What if they could make memories that would last forever, memories that their families could cherish long after they were gone? That's how the Sophie Foundation was born. Its mission was simple: To give kids who were very sick one magical day where they weren't just patients. They were dreamers. They could go on exciting rides, meet their heroes, and make beautiful memories. They could feel special and loved just like Sophie did. Keanu poured his heart into the foundation. He used his own money to fund it, reached out to his friends in Hollywood, and worked day and night to make sure that no child would be forgotten. He wanted them to experience the magic of life, even if their time was short. With Keanu's heart, his connections, and his ability to bring people together, the foundation grew faster than anyone expected. People from all over the world started to notice. The news spread quickly, and soon the world was talking about the Sophie Foundation. News stations talked about it. Keanu Reeves creates the Sophie Foundation to make wishes come true. A simple hug led to a worldwide movement. One girl's story inspires a new kind of charity. Parents of sick children reached out. Doctors who had seen their patients lose hope wanted to help. Even famous people wanted to be part of this beautiful mission. And every time the foundation helped a child, Keanu thought of Sophie. Every smile, every adventure, every dream came true. It was all because of her. Celebrities donated money, companies wanted to sponsor events, and hospitals started working with the foundation to bring joy to their young patients. The foundation was growing bigger than Keanu had ever imagined, and with each passing day, more and more children were getting their wishes granted. One day Keanu got a letter. It was from Sophie's parents. His hands shook as he opened it. He hadn't spoken to them since the funeral. He didn't know if they wanted to stay in touch or if seeing him would remind them of their loss. But as he read the letter, he understood something important. They didn't see him as a reminder of their pain. They saw him as a reminder of love. Dear Keanu, there are no words to thank you for what you did for our daughter. We spent months watching her grow weaker and we were scared. We were angry at the world for taking her away from us. But that day with you was the happiest we had seen her in a long time. Before she passed, she told us she had no regrets. She felt like she had truly lived. You gave her that. And now, with the Sophie Foundation, we know her story will never be forgotten. Thank you for keeping her memory alive. Thank you for giving other children the same magic. With love, the Carter family. Keanu held the letter to his chest. He didn't need awards or applause. All he needed was to know that Sophie's life had mattered. Because of her, so many other children would get to feel the same kind of magic. Years passed. The world changed. But Keanu never forgot that one day, the day Sophie had hugged him and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." Because the truth was he had always seen her. And now so did the world. That hug, a hug from someone who truly cared, had started something bigger than either of them could have ever imagined. Because sometimes life isn't about how long we live. It's about the love we leave behind. And Sophie, she left behind a legacy that would never fade. The world had changed because of one girl and one day. What started as a simple promise to give a sick girl a happy day had turned into a worldwide movement. The Sophie Foundation became a beacon of hope, granting wishes to children who had stopped dreaming. Hospitals reached out. Parents found hope. Kids who had spent most of their lives in hospital beds were suddenly riding motorcycles, meeting their heroes, and seeing the most beautiful places on earth. But when something gets big, not everyone is happy about it. Keanu was about to face his biggest challenge yet. The Sophie Foundation was growing fast. Doctors were amazed. Kids who had been sad for so long were now smiling and laughing. Some children even started feeling a little better because they were happier. But not everyone supported the foundation. Some powerful companies and medical groups didn't like what Keanu was doing. They thought it was too good to be true. And they had the power to stop him. One morning, Keanu got a call from Ryan Mitchell, the director of the foundation. "You need to see this," Ryan said. His voice sounded serious. "They're coming after us." Keanu rushed to the office. He saw newspapers, letters, and emails spread out on the table. The headlines were harsh. Keanu Reeves charity giving false hope? Doctors say wish granting could be harmful. Can the Sophie Foundation last? Keanu took a deep breath. He knew this wasn't going to be easy. But he also knew one thing for sure. He wouldn't stop fighting for Sophie's dream. No matter what. Keanu clenched his jaw as he looked at the articles. They were twisting the truth. People were saying that giving sick children hope was a bad thing. They said that granting their wishes made them believe they could get better, even when they couldn't. They said Keanu's foundation was just a dream that would leave families heartbroken in the end. But Keanu knew why they were doing this. The truth scared them. The truth was that children were more than just patients. They deserved happiness, love, and adventure, even if they didn't have much time left. Hospitals shouldn't just focus on keeping them alive. they should also make their lives beautiful. But the big companies that made money from keeping kids in cold, sad hospital rooms didn't want people to know this. Now Keanu had a choice. Should he give up or keep fighting? Keanu sat in silence while his team talked about what to do. Ryan, one of his team members, sighed and rubbed his temples. Keanu, this is serious. If we don't speak up, we could lose everything. Emma, a nurse who had joined Keanu's foundation, added, some hospitals won't work with us anymore. They think we're giving kids too much hope. Keanu looked up, confused. Too much hope? How can hope be bad? Emma sighed. For them, it's not about the kids. It's about control. If we show that making kids happy helps them, it means hospitals have been doing things wrong for years. Keanu clenched his fists. So what do they want? Ryan hesitated. They want you to step down. Silence filled the room. Keanu felt the weight of those words. Step down? Give up on something that meant so much to him? Let LY's dream die? No. Keanu wasn't the kind of person to walk away from a fight that mattered. And this was the most important fight of his life. The next day, Keanu held a press conference. Reporters gathered, cameras flashed, and the world waited for his response. He stood in front of everyone wearing his usual black suit. Then he spoke. People say we are giving children false hope. They say we are misleading them. They think we are making kids believe in things they'll never have. But let me ask you this. What's the other option? The room was silent. Should we tell these kids they don't deserve happiness? That they should just wait to die in hospital beds staring at white walls? Keanu took a deep breath. Hope isn't dangerous. Hope makes life worth living. Hope gives people the strength to fight their hardest battles. And if giving these kids a beautiful memory is wrong, then I never want to be right. The room erupted in applause. The internet exploded with support. Millions of people stood with Keanu. Celebrities, doctors, and families all joined in. Even hospitals that had refused to work with them started calling back. Keanu had turned the attack into a movement. The world wasn't just standing with him, they were fighting alongside him. A few weeks later, Keanu visited a small hospital in New York. He was there to meet a new child in the Foundation's program. Her name was Olivia. She was 8 years old, with big brown eyes and a bright smile. Keanu sat beside her bed and held her tiny hand. Olivia grinned up at him. You're the guy from the movies. Keanu chuckled. I guess I am. Olivia's mom wiped away tears. She's been talking about meeting you for weeks. Keanu squeezed Olivia's hand. Well, I'm here now. And I heard you have a big wish. Olivia nodded excitedly. I want to see the stars. Keanu tilted his head. The stars. Olivia giggled. Not just from my window. I want to see them up close. Keanu thought for a moment, then smiled. I think we can make that happen. A few days later, Olivia and her family were flown to a private observatory. Keanu was right beside her as she looked through a giant telescope. Her eyes widened. This is amazing, she whispered. Keanu smiled. It really is. Olivia looked up at him. Do you think LY is out there somewhere watching? Keanu felt his chest tighten. He looked up at the sky, the stars twinkling like tiny lanterns. I think she is, he whispered. Olivia smiled, and in that moment, Keanu felt something he hadn't in a long time, peace. LY's dream wasn't fading. It was shining brighter than ever. One morning, Keanu got a call from Ryan, the director of the foundation. Keanu, there's a boy. His name is Lucas. He's 7 years old. Keanu's heart clenched. Every time he heard a child's name and age, he knew what it meant. Ryan sighed. Lucas doesn't want a wish. Keanu frowned. What do you mean? Ryan hesitated. His doctors say he doesn't have much time left. His parents hoped we could do something for him, but when we asked Lucas what he wanted, he said he didn't want anything. Silence filled the line. Keanu understood what this meant. Lucas had already given up. Keanu gripped the phone tightly. I need to see him. A few days later, Keanu walked into a hospital in Chicago. The halls smelled like medicine, and the walls were painted in soft colors to make it feel less like a sad place. A nurse led him to Lucas's room. Inside, the little boy lay curled up under a blanket. His mother sat beside him, looking exhausted. Keanu stepped in. Hey, Lucas. The boy barely looked at him. Keanu sat beside his bed. I heard you don't want a wish. Lucas shrugged. I don't need one. Keanu tilted his head. Why not? Lucas looked away. What's the point? It won't change anything. Keanu's heart ached. He had met kids who were scared or sad. But Lucas had already said goodbye before his body even had to. Keanu couldn't let that happen. Keanu leaned forward. Lucas, what if we do something different? No big wish, no cameras, no fancy stuff. Just you and me hanging out. Lucas blinked. Just hanging out? Keanu grinned. Yeah. No big adventure, just us doing whatever you want. Lucas hesitated, then nodded. Okay. The next morning, Keanu arrived at Lucas's house. They played video games and Lucas beat Keanu in Mario Kart. They watched cartoons. They ate pizza and Lucas laughed when Keanu got sauce on his shirt. Later, Lucas looked up at Keanu. Can I tell you a secret? Keanu placed a hand on his heart. I'm great at keeping secrets. Lucas smiled sadly. I didn't want a wish because I didn't want my mom and dad to be sad when I'm gone. Keanu's throat tightened. Do you think they won't be sad? Lucas looked down. No, but maybe a little less. Keanu took a deep breath. You know, people don't just remember big things. They remember the little moments too. Like laughing over pizza and playing games. Those are the things that stay. Lucas was quiet, then he nodded. And Keanu knew Lucas wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of leaving his family in pain. A few weeks later, Lucas passed away peacefully in his sleep. His parents told Keanu that in his last days he had smiled more, laughed more. He had even said, I think I'd want to make a wish after all. But maybe he already had. Keanu never stopped thinking about Ly, Olivia, and Lucas. Because life isn't measured in time. It's measured in love. And that love never fades. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more exciting stories filled with adventure, mystery, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.